In the beginning, she's making lots of eye contact, perhaps even almost flirting with you.
She said something in a small voice about North Carolina that I couldn't hear, and I asked her to repeat it. And she said that she and I should go to North Carolina. And I asked her, is Gammon in North Carolina? And she didn't answer.
Boy, the past 2 days were full of fireworks in the trial of Letecia Stauch. We got to learn about Letecia flirting with FBI agent Johnny Grusing. We got to hear her talk about her faith in God, allegedly, and about the story of Paul and Saul. And we got to hear about Agent Johnny Grusing saying Letecia wanted her to run away with him to North Carolina at the last minute after she was arrested. Court may have gotten out early yesterday, which was Monday, April 24th, 2023, in the case of People versus Letecia Stauch, but it was still a doozy. And then today, Tuesday, April 25th, ended with plenty of fireworks.
I can't cross-examine this document or the person.
Your Honor, he brought this up.
Stop, both of you. I have an objection. If I want a response, I'll ask for one. The objection's overruled. Right now, we're working on laying a business record exception to the hearsay rule. So let's deal with that first. It hasn't been asked to be offered to be admitted yet, but I understand what we're dealing with. It's been identified for the record. Go ahead and
And Your Honor, could you advise Mr. Young to not taunt me in open court? It's actually the person who brought this up originally, so yelling across the courtroom, I don't appreciate and I don't think it's professional.
Letecia's attorney, Mr. Cook, was asking the judge, Judge Warner, to admonish a prosecuting attorney, claiming that Mr. Cook was being taunted. All of this brouhaha started when Letecia's visiting history came out as a surprise. It's something I think I FOIA'd, but I never got. I'm pretty sure from El Paso County Jail. But the brouhaha started over this piece of paper and whether or not Letecia's attorneys at the time told her about Gannon's remains being found in Florida. This is all because Letecia reportedly reacted when she heard that Gammon had been found in Florida, and we know she was already jailed at this point in March of 2020. Reportedly, Letecia said, I was never in Florida. Of course, all the telematics and everything can prove exactly where Letecia was, as we've looked at in previous videos. But now the decision comes down to whether Letecia was sane or not. An insane person or one suffering from dissociative identity disorder, which is what they're going for, wouldn't have necessarily blurted out, I was never in Florida. That shows logical thinking, trying to convince those around her that she was nowhere near where Gannon's remains were found, which would prove her cunning, her evil, her crazy but not insane state of mind, apparently. So the main point I want to talk about is Monday, when we got to watch the remaining portion of that 5-hour-long video of Letecia, former FBI agent Johnny Grusing, just so calmly talking to her and just trying to get the truth out of her every way since Sunday and not ever getting a clean story. As DA Mike Allen noted, Letecia might have started off a little flirty with Agent Johnny Grusing. It's hard for us to kind of see, but we can still kind of see her body language. Apparently in the beginning, if you watch my previous video, almost 5 hours long, you could see her giving Johnny more direct eye contact, calling him Johnny when he insisted, but later she reverts back to calling him sir, and she puts her head down. She almost gives up. She didn't do any Jodi Arias type of handstands or cartwheels or whatever, but at some point she did get up during the interview, and at the end, unfortunately was off camera, but apparently Letecia whispered to Johnny, let's go to North Carolina. It's interesting, that's her home, that's where she's from. At that point, Letecia probably wanted to go home to something familiar. Go home to something comfortable. She's going to feel like she's the type that doesn't belong in jail. Despite the horrid, horrific nature of everything she's accused of doing to Gammon, Dr. Stauch believes she doesn't belong in jail. She believes she's too educated, and I guess her husband makes too much money. I don't know, I was falling asleep again and running all around the place in between parts of today's testimony. It's getting down to the get down, and her attorneys are kind of coming out with fire. But back to Agent Johnny Grusing. He said it took place right outside the door of that interview room. We're about to watch the rest of it. Right outside the door, she said something in a small voice about North Carolina that I couldn't hear. She said she and I should go to North Carolina. And right on point, Grusing brought the topic back to the victim, back to Gammon, where it belonged. And I asked if Gammon was in North Carolina, and she didn't answer. So Letecia, unfortunately, was trying to rely upon some sex appeal. Obviously, it's worked throughout her life with some of these men. I mean, she got Albert Stauch somehow, but unfortunately, I guess he couldn't see the monster behind, the monster beneath. And if she really was mistreated as a child, that's nothing to sneeze at, but of course it doesn't excuse what she did to Gammon. I believe, like some victims grow up to do, sometimes in a warped way, that type of mistreatment warps into people like Letecia thinking that's what she had to use to try and get her out of different situations. So obviously the wheels of escape were already turning as soon as Letecia was arrested. Why else would she whisper to this FBI agent, hoping to turn this man within a whisper, let's go to North Carolina, as if that would work, as if he would give up his family and career and everything and accolades and his whole life to go, run away with her? She was thinking of escape. But, of course, Grusing didn't bite. I'm sure he's seen that quite a bit. And Letecia did not find herself a new law enforcement daddy. So then, at some point, Letecia starts talking about the man upstairs before launching into this diatribe about her alleged faith in God. She spoke of watching some type of Ron Milner, I don't know, it's still really hard to hear. It's going to be as clear as possible coming up. Some type of story about a man who started a church, but he got bullied online and went through all this stuff. So Letecia was talking about some type of documentary she had just watched, I guess, but it's hard to hear. Then she turned to Bible talk, so I was really interested, ears wide open. She started speaking about Saul, who became Paul in the Bible. That man who was first so zealous and misdirected about killing Christians that God had to knock him down. Jesus had to lay him out on that road to Damascus, strike him blind, and, ask him, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And Saul's like, who is it, Lord? He transformed that man, Saul, into Paul, the Apostle Paul, who ended up writing 2/3 of the New Testament. So was Letecia likening herself to Saul/Paul? Paul from Tarsus, the tent maker? I wish Grusing could have delved in there a little bit deeper. Grusing talked about him having faith too. And Letecia has the nerve to say, I can walk you through a lot in the Bible if you know what I'm talking about. In the Bible, they persecuted a lot of Christians, right? So I wish that line of questioning could have been delved into deeper. Was Letecia likening herself to Saul? Like this person who did away with good people out of wrong motivation, and when the Lord struck them down, they transformed their lives? She's talking about persecuted Christians, but I wanted to hear more about her Saul error and where she was going with this. Was she likening it to what she did to Gammon? Maybe it would have led nowhere like most of his questioning with her. Letecia said, this morning I literally decided, God, you can bring Gammon to the front door and drop him off so that I can please never have to worry about this again. Everything she talks about is about herself, not like a real parent who is really grieving the loss of a child. Like, please come home. I pray the child comes home so that I know he's safe and he's out of danger and he this or he that or she this or she that. No, Letecia's like, I, me mine, I, me mine, I, me mine. That's all she talks about. She said, or, this is the second part of her prayer that morning, I guess, or you can let me stay focused in believing in him, the truth will come out. So Grusing did go down that line of faith a little bit. He talked to her about Harold Henthorne, a Christian like you are. I like that he likened this man to Letecia. Harold was a man who pushed his wife off of a cliff. So it was 2012 when Harold was convicted of pushing his second wife, Toni, off a cliff. It happened in Rocky Mountain National Park. And Harold would have been the beneficiary of a $4.7 million life insurance policy if he had gotten away with this. But Harold has always maintained his innocence. In 2015, it took a jury only about 10 and a half hours to convict Harold. I wonder how long it'll take this jury to convict Letecia. Not only was Harold found guilty of pushing his wife off a cliff, investigators think Harold had a hand in doing away with his first wife, Lynn, who died under mysterious circumstances in 1995. So Letecia goes, "I'm sorry, what's his name? Harold?" She starts to say, "Oh, Harold must not have been a real God follower. In order for you to repent your sins," she's saying, "you have to lay them all down on the cross." Okay, yeah, there's some truth in her lies here. We do have to lay our sins down at the foot of the cross. Jesus took them all for us. Letecia said, "My sins are laid down." But the problem is, she starts lying and says they did not involve hurting, harming, or killing anyone. So, if those are lies, like I believe they are, those sins are not confessed and they're not laid down on the cross, so they're not forgiven. Letecia can't game Jesus. She's not smarter than God. She can't play him like she's played so many other men in her life. She said, "That higher power is going to show the entire world. And when it does, I will never have to work a day in my life again." So again, she's claiming God's going to show the entire world that she's innocent of this madness. And then she will never have to work a day in her life again. Again, everything is self-focused. God is going to show the entire world. Imagine if it were like the Elizabeth Smart case, and if by some miracle we wished that Gammon were still alive and safe somewhere, we would say, "Oh my goodness, God showed the entire world." But then we wouldn't say, "Well, I have to never work a day in my life again." What, at proving she was telling the truth? Again, the focus should be on the victim. It would be like, hallelujah, Gammon was really alive and he's unharmed. Good for him. Thank God for him. Anyway, Letecia said, "Did y'all put out a reward yet?" She's asking Johnny Grusing, throwing the blame back on him. Grusing astutely said, "There's no need to put a reward out." He knew. She's trying to game him. He's not going for it. However, he did probably ask her about 30, 40 times, "What's the last image you have of Gammon? Where did you last see him?" And she's like, "Oh, it's nothing bad." He's saying, "I never said it was bad." She gives herself away so much during this interview. She claims Gammon was her favorite stepchild. She said, "Gammon was happy. Gammon is my favorite stepchild, my baby." So again, what's the last image you have of him? Walking, she finally says, after hours and hours. "Towards you or away?" "Away," she says. I thought that was pretty poignant. Grusing let that word hang in the air. There was a 52-second pause of silence after she said that Gammon was walking away from her. And we know it's all lies. Now that we've seen the horrible autopsy photos and everything, we can imagine the last image of Gammon that Letecia really does have in her head. And may it torture her and taunt her until she actually does come clean, walk the walk, talk the talk, and seek true repentance by telling the truth. That's what Grusing tried to impress upon her. Don't just talk about believing in this Bible or God or whomever if you're going to sit there and lie. Grusing tried to impress upon Letecia, the Bible talks a lot about truth. So, what is the truth? And she wouldn't break. In the cross-examination of Grusing, Letecia's attorney, Will Cook, he didn't have much to go on. He wasn't as fiery Monday as he was today, Tuesday. Monday, Cook was asking Grusing, "Well, what about these times that Letecia referred to herself in the third person on the phone calls with Al, where Letecia flowed into this thing that said, Tisha doesn't do this. Tisha doesn't do that. Grusing said that wasn't unusual or odd to him. And it wasn't that much to me either. If a person does it constantly, maybe. I mean, it's a funny thing. Remember that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza would say, George is getting very upset. You know, George was self-involved, based on a self-involved character. Or even in different songs like that song Pink, There You Go. Shorty got a job, Shorty got a car, Shorty can pay her own rent. You know, she was talking about herself. So there are instances where people refer to themselves in the third person, and it probably speaks to more selfishness or conceitedness as opposed to insanity. This trial is moving along at a good fast clip. It's almost over. I lit this candle praying that Gannon's justice is coming sooner and soon and very soon. Jury might get their instructions as early as Friday and start deliberating. We may have a nice guilty verdict for Letecia as early as next week. We will see. In the meantime, Judge Warner said he might have to have a long conversation with Letecia if she wants to waive her attorney-client privilege and talk about these former female attorneys who may have visited her and given her the news about Gannon's remains being found as a way to try and explain away why she reacted that way. Oh, I was never in Florida. Her attorneys are trying to say that's because Letecia already knew the news about Gannon being found earlier that day. I don't think that's going to fly, but we will see. And I was thinking today, can you imagine if Letecia took the stand in her own defense? She would be pretending to be all kinds of crazy up and down just to present herself as insane to the jury. Her mouth has gotten her in trouble so much. She was apparently going around El Paso County Jail spouting off about once the question of her mental state came into play, that was another grift for her. That was another potential way out. Okay, I can go for this not guilty by reason of insanity so I can act insane. I can put my blanket over my head and not want to talk or claim they're poisoning me and my peanut butter or all this madness because it might look good for an insanity defense, and then she could try and escape to some cushy mental institution, which I'm sure she's hoping has less security so she can make another escape. I'm sure that's her game plan, and I'm sure it won't work. Before we watch this, John 10:28 through 30. Jesus said, "And I give them eternal life. They will never ever by any means perish, and no one will ever snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater and mightier than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and the Father are one in essence and nature." Letecia can try the God angle, and I'm never one to. Only God knows who truly believes in him and who's paying him lip service or not. But if Letecia is using this just as another angle, I recommend she stop doing that. Fall on the rock, confess, and let Gannon get his final justice. Thank you.
The board that was found up in southern Douglas County, do you remember that portion?
Yes.
And you used a word in your question, thrown, and then you got quite a challenge from the defendant. Was that consistent where she would challenge you on things that were maybe peripheral?
Yes.
Can you give examples of that and what that meant to you during this interview?
Well, she used words like she was giving us keys, and then if I wasn't correct on my guesses, which I had asked her not to have me guess since I didn't know all the answers, she would get upset if I didn't guess correctly on whether it's Gannon's location or what she was doing when her phone was off, those sorts of things.
What do you mean by guesses? And give examples of what you mean when you use the word guesses.
So, especially during this later part of the interview when I was asking her about the blood, more than once she would say that if I knew enough about this investigation, I should be able to say either where Gannon is or more details about what was going on that I couldn't guess too. So it was an effective way really for her to not answer my question, and tell me that she knew things I didn't know.
Did that indicate to you fairly high intellect?
It did, and forward thinking, and that she knew that the questions that I was asking her would require a difficult answer. And so she was requiring the same out of me, something that was actually impossible for me to answer because I didn't know what she knew.
And as it relates to that, are you talking about Gannon's location at this particular time?
Yes.
Okay. Just after that portion of video where we were watching you asking her about the board with blood being found up in southern Douglas County, did you ask her, or I guess confront her with other pieces of evidence as well?
Yes.
All right. So the next section we're going to play is a shorter section. It's at 4 hours, 7 minutes, and 13 seconds through 4 hours, 10 minutes, and 13 seconds.
Do you know why I told you about that? I normally don't do this. Tell everybody all the evidence against them. Why do you think?
I don't know.
Because I think if you're to weigh this on, there's enough probable cause. A judge in Colorado Springs in El Paso has signed a probable cause warrant for first-degree murder.
Okay.
And all this evidence, and I'm telling you about the ones that I know about, and that's before you do, all the phone stuff, et cetera, and then versus you taking a chance that you're going to get out. It's
I'm not taking a chance for nothing because I didn't do anything, sir. Okay, sir.
If you say you didn't do anything, do you know what an innocent person would do? I have had plenty of innocent people sitting in your chair. Do you know what an innocent person would do? They would be freaking out.
Well,
You are not freaking out.
yeah, right. You think I haven't freaked out?
I heard
for,
you freak out on
days?
the phone one time.
Think I haven't freaked out for days? You can't judge the way I freak
No.
something out one way and another way.
I have had the wrong person in a room like this before,
Okay.
and trust me, if they had any idea who did it, they would tell me.
Okay. Well,
That makes no sense,
I guess
and no
that's
jury
what
will
you're-
buy. No jury's going to buy
Okay.
that you sit here with an answer that somebody else took Gammon, that all this head wound and all this stuff happened in there. Do you think I don't know what I'm talking about?
Sir, I never question anything.
Well, you must, because you're taking a huge chance, Letecia.
Sir, I'm not taking any chance
How will you not take
because
a chance?
I know the man upstairs knows I did not do anything.
Well, he's not going to be on the jury.
Okay. All right. We're not going to go there with that. We're not going to go
We're
there.
going to sensible people who we're going to present evidence in front of.
Let me tell you what. There's a higher power.
There
That
is.
higher power will make sure.
I believe in the higher power as well.
I'm glad you did. That really makes me feel a lot better. It really does. I'm serious. So when you know,
But Letecia, this comes down to common sense.
I do have
And these prosecutors, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about who you're going to be sitting in front of.
Okay.
And if you're going to take a chance that they're not going to listen to all this evidence, all this blood, all these stories that you told about Gannon, and that you have the key to finding him and you don't do it, there's nobody else to prosecute.
Okay.
Why won't you go there?
Why am I, what else am I going to say?
The easiest thing to tell me is the last time you saw Gannon.
I've already told you I'm not hurting.
But then what do I need to go through again the other things that might have happened to Gannon? Where did you gently place Gannon?
What?
I don't know how to phrase it.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, because I don't know where he is. If you want me to use a different verb or whatever, I'm struggling.
I've got it paused at 4 hours, 10 minutes, and 13 seconds. Why have you shifted tactics here to trying to now find Gannon's location as to getting descriptions of what happened to him?
Well, she seems to be more reluctant to answer questions now. And she showed me with the particle board. She got upset when I said she threw it. And as I said earlier, she gets upset if I guess. So I tried different verbs like placing it, setting it, those sorts of things. And then she will settle back down. So that's why I'm trying different ways to get her to communicate to me any other clue that might have happened with Gannon. So I'm just trying yet a different tactic again.
Including clues potentially towards his location?
Yes.
Okay. When you go down this particular path of talking about last place that she may have seen Gannon, did she give you any keys that helped find Gannon?
No. And I had already asked her in the previous section who the last person was with Gannon, since she was saying it wasn't her. We had been through the angel routine, and then I was trying to see if she would push it to anybody else, and she's not. So since she's not pushing it to anybody else, she's basically saying it's her. So I just want her to say where she last saw him, whether it was in the house, whether it was at the Petco, whether it was at Palmer Lake, to give us some sort of clue of her last sighting of him.
You made a statement in that section that you don't normally tell people that you're interviewing about all of the evidence. One, why do you not typically do that?
We don't typically do that because we don't want the defendant or whoever we're in front of to testify falsely to something in case we give them too much evidence and then they say something they didn't do. Also, we don't want them to know what we know because I want their statement to be pure in that they're not just repeating what I say. With this interview, we had gone far enough to where we would do something called the collaborative interview, to where we bring the person in with us and we share as much as we can to try to get them to collaborate and cooperate with us, since I'm working towards a solution and I'm trying to bring her in almost as an investigator to help me find out what happened to Gannon. So the more facts that I introduce to her slowly, I'm hoping that she'll start cooperating with me.
So you anticipated my follow-up question is, why were you doing that in this case? But you just answered that. As this discussion sort of develops, does she then talk about faith in God and that kind of thing?
She does.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and play that. It's basically from this point forward to 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds.
Keisha, this is not about you. You're the one caught up in it, though. You're the one with all the evidence stacked against you.
Okay, well,
Help yourself right now.
okay, though.
Why would you not?
How did that do
But tell me what happened.
So what happened before? I don't know.
The way you
Well, I'm
described,
going to stand up for a moment.
absolutely. The wounds that you described to him don't even come close to the blood in the
then
house.
that's what you think. Then,
No,
sir.
it's not.
Okay.
This is what people that do this for a living tell me.
Okay.
Again, I wasn't there, but a little gash on his head
Okay, sir.
doesn't explain at all that stuff that's in there.
Okay.
But do you want to go with that? Because when you walk out of here, the last thing on record you're going to have is what you told me. And I would love to be your storyteller.
Okay.
I would love to tell the true story. It will help you. You believe in that higher power you
Oh, I do. That's why. You
What
want to know
about the
why?
truth? Do you study the truth?
You want to know why I'm not sitting here like going crazy, freaking out, putting on an emotional show like I've seen people involved in this situation put on fake cries and all that? Because I know God knows.
Okay.
I mean,
But what about the truth? You study the same Bible, the same God. It tells a lot about truth in there, and you have not told many truths in this whole thing.
well, I don't know that. Guess what? But let me tell you what happened this morning when I woke up. When I woke up this morning, I watched a story about Ron Miller. So he started this show. He ended up like getting talked down to, bullied online, treated like crap, accused of things he didn't do. And that's where he went to the accusation part. And so he went down this whole trail talking about how accusation, how this did to him, what he had to go through, and all that.
Okay.
But in the end, he kept his faith in Jesus Christ. You know about the story of Paul, you know about Saul in the Bible. Okay, guys, I can walk you through a lot in the Bible. If you know what I'm talking about. So he turned those accusations into just keeping steadfast and staying strong, and into believing God's going to do this and keeping whatever. Because, you know, in the Bible, they persecuted a lot of Christians, right? A lot of them for things they didn't do right. But, you know, there's a lot of stories where God made sure they were okay. So when I woke up this morning, I literally decided, God, you can take this, and you can either A, bring Gammon home, bring him to the front step, drop him off, so that I can please never have to worry about this again.
Right.
Or you can let me stay focused on believing in you, as in him, and just the truth will come out. And it's okay, because I don't want to sit here and accuse all these people of whatever. I'm not going to turn those same accusations against them for saying this and saying that, not believing this, not believing that. I'm just going to just sit there and say, I know I did not hurt Gammon.
But that, I get.
So I've got it paused at 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds. Did you go on from this basically to then try to get her to tell you more details about when she last saw Gannon?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to jump to that section at 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 18 seconds. And we will play through 4 hours, 20 minutes, and 3 seconds.
Go a different way. If you did something bad to Gannon.
I did not.
I'm saying we go if. If you did something bad to Gannon, could you ever admit it?
I'm not going to go.
This is not a trick.
But I'm not going to go answer that question, because I did not do anything bad.
The reason why I ask you that is the people that I've worked with are actually put in prison for life. I've told them, and I've told people, the families of these victims, I said, if you put Harold in a room and you take everybody else out, we have absolute evidence that he pushed his wife off a cliff and that he dropped a car on his little wife, and he was convicted. I said, even if you clear everybody out and you just have Harold in a mirror, Harold was a God follower, Christian like you are, I said he could never admit that he did that to either wife.
Well, I'm sorry that, what's his name, Harold? Harold is that type of person. Because a God follower, I'm not judging him, I'm saying, in order for you have to repent your sins to God, okay? And you have to put yourself there. And in order to repent your sins to God, it means also you have to lay them all down on the cross. And like, my sins are laid down. And it is not involving hurting, harming, or killing you. So I'm sorry that Harold, or whatever his name is, has like a different approach.
Well, I think you have probably a more serious problem than Harold does. You know where an 11-year-old is, and I am here telling you we could go find him, and you are not giving us his location, alive or dead. So what Harold did was push a 50-year-old woman off the cliff. It was an awful thing, and the parents hated losing Tony. But Tony had lived a full life, as full as you can till 50. It was still tragic. Gannon's 11. Gannon,
That doesn't matter age, you're right. It's tragic, right?
Yeah.
You just said
and
that.
if you had the answer, you would give it to us.
I don't know where he is.
But you won't answer my question about the last time you saw him.
Listen, sir, anything I say to you, you're not going to listen to me. You're going to take.
I'm not going to twist things, Letecia.
To be honest with you, I can give you speculation.
Okay, give me
with everyone else.
speculation. Please.
I can give you
I'll take
speculation.
speculation.
Speculation is Gammon is alive. Speculation is Gammon is with someone who is not willing to hurt him until they get something they want.
Why wouldn't they make a demand then? Why would they hold an 11-year-old kid? That's more sadistic.
So as we talked about, we stopped it at 4 hours, 20 minutes, and 3 seconds. Why did you start this section out with asking, could she admit it? What was in your mind when you asked that question?
When it's a familial matter and someone that you really care about is the person that you've harmed. I haven't yet had someone who's admitted to me that they were responsible for that harm or homicide.
And so that's why you're asking that particular question?
Yes.
Okay. And then does it devolve back into now he's been kidnapped by some group?
Yes.
All right. Did you then confront her again about the blood on the wall?
Yes,
Does she bring up a miscarriage that she apparently had sometime prior?
she does.
All right, let's watch that section. It starts at 4 hours, 21 minutes, and 47 seconds and goes through 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 47 seconds.
And Your Honor, could Mr. Allen and I
All right.
All right.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Picking up from where we left off, we were going to jump to the confrontation about blood on the wall and being compared to a miscarriage, and it's going to jump to 4 hours, 21 minutes, and 47 seconds. And we will play through 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 47 seconds. So exactly 2 minutes worth of video.
You have nothing to do with harming Gammon. Why would you clean up the blood that's on the wall?
So you're saying you've never had anything happen in your house and you cleaned it up? Never. Like, you've never had, like...
Why would you cut out the carpet?
Nosebleeds. The carpet?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to get more carpet. It doesn't... The carpet has nothing to do with cutting it out. It's getting smell. It stunk. I couldn't breathe. None of us could breathe.
Did you say that Lena helped you clean up some of the blood on the wall?
Lena always helps us clean up everything. Lena helped us clean up the light switch. Lena helped us clean up when Gannon had a nosebleed. Okay?
But for this occasion, she helped with that.
Now you're going to walk me back through what we've already talked about. So you're now going to go be like, oh, an 8-year-old this and an 8-year-old that. Come on. There was all the time. Gannon was bleeding all the time. He'd have a nosebleed randomly at the drop of a dime. He'd bite his fingers, bleed all the time.
Would it help if I gave you a picture of the wall of what all showed up on it?
Sir, that's not going to get me to say anything to you because I didn't do anything.
Well, what I'm trying to appeal to, though, is, again, you weighing your options right now before we're gone.
Sir.
Because you're taking a big risk, Letecia.
Sir. I believe in higher power. And that higher power is going to show the entire world. And when it does, I would never have to work a day in my life again. And that's going to happen. Guaranteed. Because I did not hurt. I did not dispose, kill, whatever you want to call these things that you're going to name out as verbs.
So why did you confront her with the blood cleanup and, for instance, the carpet cutout?
We had talked about it before, but this is what I'm left with to speak with her about, is the evidence in the case to see if she'll move from where she was.
Were you trying to give her an opening to give you more details?
Yes, and I don't remember if I had brought up before Lena's participation in this, but I wanted to see...
Lena, you mean?
Yeah, Lena's participation, and to see how she would react to that.
Again, is it consistent throughout the interview that she would resist those opportunities when it related to the specifics of the crime itself?
Yes, and again, she said she sees the pathway where these questions would be going, and she says she's not going to go there.
Appreciating where you want to get to.
Correct.
From your perception, was that logical thought process?
Very.
Shortly after this portion of the video, do you confront her with trying to get information about, hey, there's a boy out there. Help me find him. Help me get him home.
Yes.
Let's jump to that section. 4 hours, 24 minutes, and 29 seconds. and we will play through 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 50 seconds. So about 8 minutes. Judge, I'm not sure if you want to allow Mr. Grusing to step down during this 8-minute portion.
Thanks.
So starting it at 4 hours, 24 minutes, and 29 seconds.
And about why would you act like this when there's a boy out there?
I want Gammon home.
Then tell me how to do it.
I want to help you. I don't know. I don't.
But see, that's where easy questions should be easy to answer.
I just said I don't know. That's an easy answer.
The easy answer is tell me the very last time you laid eyes on him. Where was he? Was he laying down? Was he standing up? Was he sitting? Was he walking to a car? Where was... Give me your very last image of Gammon. That's an easy question. You have to remember your last image of Gammon. Letecia, what was he doing? Why would you not answer that?
Because I've given you.
No, you haven't told me exactly what you saw when you saw him for the very last time. Did you see the back of his head? Did you see his face? What was his expression? Did he say goodbye to you? Tell me of your last... You know, I wish I could see in your head right now. Your very last image is there, but you won't tell me. Why won't you tell me?
Because it's nothing bad to
Well, then
you.
tell me. If it's nothing bad, you would tell me. Image of Gammon.
I don't
Please.
have any bad images again.
I didn't say it was bad.
I don't
just
have
asked you,
any.
What's the very last picture of seeing Gammon alive or not alive that you have in your brain?
He is alive. I'm not
Then
going to say
tell me the last time you saw him. What did you see? Letecia, all that stuff you said earlier.
Okay.
Being a good person, you didn't hurt him, you didn't do all this. I'm repeating it back to you. Why could you not tell me then? If that all that is true, you know the last time you saw him. What would that hurt to tell me? Do you kind of think?
No, I don't.
Well, then tell me.
I don't need any kinds of...
What is wrong with that question?
There's nothing wrong with the question. I've already made it clear that I wasn't going to answer more questions
You've never answered this one.
because you have already predetermined what you want in your brain along with everyone else.
Why do you care about what's in my brain?
So you just asked me about mine.
Yeah, because your brain's the only one that counts here. It doesn't matter what's in my brain. The very last time you saw Gammon, where was he? What was he doing?
Did y'all put a reward out?
There's no need to put it. Can you please answer that?
Then you automatically have a predetermined thing in your brain.
If you give me something else, I'll go
Yeah,
there.
no, wow.
Why do you care about my brain, Letecia? Yours is the one that matters. What's the last thing you
Let me
saw?
tell you one more time. It did not hurt.
I didn't ask
Harm,
that.
do
I did not
anything
ask
wrong.
that. I don't care. What is the last
I
image
mean,
you have of him?
That's all these places I've been.
Why don't you answer that question?
Why don't you
I'm just
answer me?
curious.
Have you checked all these places I've been and where was Gammon? Was he there? Doesn't that have to like sink it in the brain for a little bit to say?
You're going to live with it for the rest of your life, Letecia. Why don't you tell me today?
I'm not living with anything horrible in my brain. I'm not.
Okay, well then it should be an easy question.
I've given you the answer.
Of the last time you saw him? No, you haven't. But I'm afraid it's not the image that you want to be left with.
What? Sir, that's not going to convince me to say something that I didn't
Okay,
do.
then maybe it is the image. Then tell me. Why else would you not tell me?
Because you keep going with the same question, and if you've already
And you won't answer it.
but you predetermined yourself.
No.
When I thought you were going to help, that was different. But you predetermined yourself.
You didn't tell me
you
what the last thing you saw was, even with your answer there. And that's fine. If you want to tell me the thing with Angel, I
I'm
don't
not going
care.
to say anything other than saying, I will It will shock everyone. But I will promise you, I won't have to worry about nothing the rest of my life because I didn't do it.
But you did. What's going to come out? That you didn't tell the FBI who took Gammon, if that's your deal? How is that going to shock everybody?
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay.
I didn't think you were guilty until you don't answer the last time you saw him.
Sir,
I
you
have-
came in this
listen.
morning
No, I did not.
and you automatically thought that. You automatically thought that already.
I was willing to listen if you were going to give me evidence to the contrary. But I have talked to many people who have seen someone disappear. It never goes away. That last image.
Well,
It
you
never
know-
goes away, and you've got it in your mind, and you won't tell me.
Right.
There's only one reason you won't tell me.
You're right. People do have, when people do bad things, their images stay in their brain. You're right.
Bad or good. A lot of these dads didn't know when the last time they were going to see their daughter.
I mean,
And they still remember it like it was yesterday, 14 years later.
oh yeah.
You remember the last time you saw Gammon.
Yeah.
So tell me what you saw.
Nothing negative.
So tell me what you saw.
I saw nothing negative. I saw nothing again.
You're telling me nothing. You're saying nothing.
Okay.
Just tell me what you did see, the positive.
Winning. I'm fine. Winning.
Or was he? Was he standing?
You said, tell me what I see. I'm just going to tell you
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
how Gannon was.
Okay.
Okay? Gannon was fine. Gannon, nothing was wrong with him. Gannon was happy. Gannon is my favorite stepchild. My favorite. I know everybody says they have favorites and things like that, or they say not really necessarily favored or whatever, but he was.
Do you remember how we
He
talked earlier?
definitely.
Remember how we
always-
talked earlier about when I ask you a question and you go around?
I'm not answering that question.
You're
for
saying,
you
you're
because
giving me qualities of Gannon. You're not saying what
I'm
you
not.
saw.
I'm
You're
not,
saying he's a favorite stepson.
sir.
What did you see?
Yeah.
Was he standing or sitting?
I didn't do anything to Gannon.
I didn't say you did. I said your last memory.
Okay, well, I didn't do anything to Gannon, so.
Do you have it in your mind right now?
Nope.
Seeing him for the last time.
Oh, well, it's not going to be the last time that I see him.
The last time you saw him. Do you
It's not
have
gonna
that?
be the last time.
Do you have that picture in your mind?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
I know you're really good at what you do. I appreciate that. I know that, but I didn't do this. This is
Well, why
why-
don't you tell me the answer to that question?
Because you
It's
want.
not-
Why would
I'm
I
not
answer questions for you?
But that is not a hard question to answer. I'm not saying did you kill him. I'm not saying did you put him in a forest. I'm not saying did you put him in a dumpster. This is just your last image. You've got to have it.
My images are happy life. That's what it will
That's not
always
what you
be.
see in your brain.
Okay. Well, see, now you know my brain.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
You have an image of the last time you saw Gammon.
Okay.
If you didn't hurt him, why won't you tell me?
I already told you I didn't hurt it.
I know, but if you didn't, why would that image be a problem for you?
It's not a problem. I don't have a problem with anything.
Then tell me. I'm not accusing you of anything, Letecia. Just tell me the last time you saw him.
At the very beginning, I'm sorry.
Not up yet.
Oh.
You can go ahead.
I'm going to ask the empty chair, Judge.
Okay.
The voice from behind me would have been interesting. Mr. Grusing, at the very beginning of this portion of the video, you start out with easy questions and easy answers. What was your purpose of that statement?
What do you mean? Easy questions, easy answers?
Well, easy questions should be easy to answer, basically.
Yeah, again, if she's saying that she's innocent of this, then the questions that I'm asking should be very easy for her to answer.
Did she give you any of these easy answers?
No.
Again, here, it appears that you're sort of pushing back when she's saying, well, what's in your mind? Did she appear to be throughout this entire interview preoccupied with what other people were thinking about her?
Yes, and that was consistent with the phone calls. And what I'm trying to keep her from doing is manipulating her answer to see what I want to hear. I just want to hear what she knows to be true.
This whole issue about did you all put out a reward, that kind of stuff. This entire section, was this another example of her deflecting away from the thrust of information you're trying to gather?
Yes.
Right after this, does she then actually challenge you about, are you going to find Gammon?
Yes.
All right, let's watch that portion. Basically, from this section on through 4 hours, 35 minutes, and 56 seconds. So just a couple minutes. So if you're okay sitting there so I don't ask an empty chair questions.
This is an easy question compared to all the other ones we've done. Please.
Are you going to find him?
Yes.
Well, I would rather spend our time doing that because I don't have him. I didn't do anything with him, to him, or hurt him.
Okay.
And I appreciate all your work.
You can help us more than anybody on this planet. You can help me right now find Gammon. Let's start with the one question I asked you.
I don't trust anymore for you because...
Well, just tell me why you don't want to answer that.
Because I've already... It doesn't matter. I can tell you I last saw Gammon when I went to the store this morning. And it could be legit true. And you would still be like, he was not in the store. I mean...
I will be able to tell if you say what he's wearing, or not even what he's wearing, how he was walking, what he... You will remember this. And just you not answering it means you remember it.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you now are a psychologist.
No, behavior analysis.
Okay, good. I'm glad you have behavior analysis. Okay. I appreciate you having behavior. What else do you want me to say or do? I mean, what else?
So you don't want to answer that one.
I don't want to tell you anything else because...
Why? If it helps find Gammon, why would you not tell?
Because you already predetermined.
I didn't say you heard him or anything. I think you know where he is, though.
You already predetermined this. You have.
The scene does tell the story,
Okay,
yes.
so if that's your story, then I'm not going to keep saying anything because I know that is not the case. So if I keep saying anything to you, you're just going to keep blah, 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 blah about it. And I've been nothing but respectful to you. So I'm trying to remain respectful to you overall because I don't have any disrespect for you. I don't treat people like that. But putting me in a situation where I'm like saying to you, I cannot say anything else because you've expressed you predetermined what you think. You've already done that. So no matter what I say, I legit could take you right to Gammon and he would be standing there and you would still say to me, well, that's not him. Or you would say something else. Just
do you know how good that would be for you?
Oh, trust me. Yes.
Then why do you care what I think?
You know how good that would be for me? Absolutely.
Why do you care what I think? You should not care at all what I think. You said I wouldn't think. If you could take us to Gammon right now, that...
So this idea where she's saying she doesn't have him, did you later learn that that was actually a true statement?
Yes.
Because of where Gammon was ultimately found?
Correct.
Later on in this interview, did you confront her with her ability to dodge questions and spin stories?
Yes.
All right, let's jump to that section at 4 hours and 39 minutes and 33 seconds. Bless you. And we will play through 4 hours and 46 minutes and 21 seconds, so about 7 minutes if he's allowed to come down, Judge.
Up to him.
I think I can handle it this time.
Okay.
You got away with spinning stories and dodging questions your whole life.
So now you know me my whole life.
I can look back a little bit. I don't know you when you were 5 or 13 or 16. But I think something bad happened. And you've been able to avoid trouble. but that doesn't happen in this case.
Okay,
These,
sir.
these stories that you told are much worse for you than if you had just said, the best thing you could have said is, Gammon just went, and that's it. I'm not saying anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But you describing all these injuries to him, even to us today, is awful.
There's not injuries like that.
Yes, you talked about it. His head.
There's all the time. You raise children and they never got hurt. Like they never.
Not all on the last day they're seen alive.
Was. You're making it out to be like some whatever. That's not even how it was.
Tell me how it was then.
Gammon and I are very close. Okay?
But see, that's what you don't do. You say generalizations when I ask you, how was it? And
why? I don't even know what you're asking me.
The injury that caused that pool in the corner. It's not a little scratch on his
Okay, why
head.
don't you test it and see what day it came from? If that's what you're telling me, why don't you test it and see what day?
So it didn't happen on Monday.
No,
It happened on Saturday.
I'm asking you. You are the one who are telling me, no matter what I say, you're telling me it's your way or no way. So why don't you tell me?
Well, I'm saying it's a significant enough injury that he was not going to be normal after that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's what they told me.
Okay, well, that is awful that people aren't normal after anything like that.
It's a significant
Because I had
injury.
puddles of blood. I remember that I had
We're not
puddles of
talking
blood
about you. We're talking about 11 years.
that I did, and there was no significant injury that I died.
Do you not find that coincidental?
Right.
The
What?
blood on the wall and by his bed.
The
and on
blood,
the mattress.
the blood that you or your team allowed people to be in the house.
That has no bearing on it.
Okay, well, if it doesn't, then okay.
It doesn't.
Okay, so, okay. Maybe check one of them.
Are you ready to tell me that?
Maybe check one of them. Because
I bet you they can tell me the last time they saw Gammon, even though it was months before. I bet Al can tell you the last time he saw Gammon, even though he didn't know that was going to be the last time. I guarantee you he's got an image of Gammon. Did you were the last one with him, Letecia?
Okay.
What do I need to say to help you? I'm serious.
You do not want to help me.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. You want me to tell you what you want to hear. That's what you want.
No.
Yes.
I have never wanted people to tell me what I want to hear. If it doesn't lead me to finding Gammon or the truth of this matter, I could care less what it is. Like I said, most of the time, I'm wrong. I have to have people like you tell me the truth. You didn't have anything to hide. You tell me your last
Don't
image of me.
have anything to hide.
Then tell me. That's not a guilt or innocence question. Just your last image of Gammon. Okay, now you don't have to tell me the last time you saw him. Just your last image in your head.
Hmm.
What's the last image in your head you have of him? No? Or was he?
Yeah, you said that's image. That's the
I mean,
image.
was he sitting? Is he standing? Is he laying down? What's he doing?
Walking
Towards you or away from you?
away.
Do you have any questions for me?
Hmm?
Any questions for me? No, that's for me. Have I not asked you a question that I should be asking you? Anything? I don't have the answers to these. Feelings that I can't talk about that now. No, I can understand
Yeah.
that. Anything? Is there anything I need to ask you that I haven't?
Mm-hmm.
Just be if I don't think they'll need anything.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Sure.
Well,
Let's pause now at 4 hours, 46 minutes and 21 seconds. As to when you both leave the room and are off camera, what happened outside in the hallway?
I believe she went to the bathroom.
Do you then come back into the room with her?
We might have opened the door, but I don't think we do any more interviews in this room.
Okay. Why'd you go down this path of confronting her with dodging questions and spinning stories?
We had talked about it before, and she had told me that she has done that in the past as far as talking in circles, dodging questions. And I just wanted to bring that back around, something that she had told me, to see if we could go straight forward just once with this last image question I had.
Did she ever give you a straightforward answer to the last image in her head?
No.
Throughout this long interview, did she exhibit that same sort of trait of dodging questions or spinning stories?
Yes.
That's appeared to you in your perception to be a calculated move on her part?
Yes.
Your final contact with her is back in this room, and it starts at 4:47:43 and then goes through 4:49:17. We'll jump to that now.
On the t-shirt. And here, like I said, you're going to have to go to whatever the jail that holds you in. Colorado's got the warrant, so they're going to transport you.
Okay.
Do you have anything else for me? I think we've talked a lot today, but if you have something you want to say, I'll sit here for another 4 hours.
Where's the one?
The warrant's in the system. It's in the NCIC is what they call it. That's what they picked you up on today, was the arrest warrant.
Okay.
So you're going to be going back there. Anything else?
Yeah.
First degree murder for Gammon stuff. That's what I was trying to come in here with you to help you. Is if we find Gammon, that makes a big difference. We'll let you go. If he's alive, you might as well try it. I can't speak for the district attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm an investigator. If he's alive and you can get us Gammon, yes, good things will happen to you today versus getting shipped back to Colorado.
I'm going to talk to you about that.
So we're now at the end of that recorded interview, essentially. Is she trying to have another off-camera discussion with you?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, have a short discussion with her off-camera?
Yes.
What happened in that discussion?
Right outside the door, we now had police officers waiting to transport. So there were probably 4 or 5 law enforcement around us. And She said something in a small voice about North Carolina that I couldn't hear, and I asked her to repeat it. And she said that she and I should go to North Carolina. And I asked her, is Gammon in North Carolina? And she didn't answer.
Was that basically the extent of that interaction?
Yes, what I recall.
Okay. In looking back at your, even your recorded phone calls that we've heard throughout this trial and in this long interview, are there any, I guess, regrets that you have as to your approaches, ways that you may have been able to get more information about what happened again?
She brought up Quincy Brown to me, I think, within an hour or so of our interview. And then she said something to the effect of, if I wasn't going to talk about that, then it wasn't any use going forward. And in looking at the phone calls with Al, that's where she described most of Gannon's injuries, or a lot of them. And looking back and playing it through, maybe I should have gone more down the Quincy Brown angle to see if she would have been willing to disclose more things. That's the only thing I can think of.
The short portions that we didn't play through your direct examination here, were there any surprises in those portions that are different from the stuff that we saw in the video that we did watch?
No.
Did she act consistently in those portions to what we saw here?
Yes.
You, in two different sections that we watched, you delved into mental health questions. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Throughout all of your interaction with her, both through those recorded phone calls and in this interview, did she ever express any history with severe mental health issues, diseases, defects, anything like that?
She did not.
Did she ever talk about sexual abuse that she allegedly suffered as a child?
No.
Did she ever point to specific people in her life, family, that she alleged carried out sexual abuse against her?
No.
Did she ever give you any descriptions of any commitments to hospitals?
No.
Did she appear to understand the gravity of the situation when you were talking with her, that this is a first-degree murder charge?
Very well.
In what ways were you able to develop that idea?
Well, as I said earlier, she's able to see where different lines of questioning go and what would be damaging for her to answer truthfully. So, whether we're talking about evidence in the case or what happened to Gannon or her role or involvement, she stops that line of questioning before it goes down something that would be damning towards her in testimony.
So are you saying resisting giving more incriminating statements about the crime itself?
Correct.
Did that appear to be a calculated move on her part?
Yes.
Throughout your entire interaction with her, both through the consensual recorded phone calls and this long interview, did you ever observe her to change personalities?
No.
Did she ever talk in a Spanish accent?
No.
Did she ever demand to be called any other names besides the name that you knew her as?
No.
Did she ever use the name Taylor?
No.
Jasmine?
No.
Harmony?
No.
Christina?
No.
Little Lucia?
No.
Maria Sanchez?
No.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
And that's all I have. I just need to disconnect this computer from here so that Mr. Cook
Right.
has a clean podium.
Okay.
And you can, I was going to say turn off the screen if you'd like.
Mr. Cook, cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Thank you.
So how long did you work for the FBI?
A few months short of 25 years.
25 years. Were you always in the Colorado office, or were you like a lot of other agents early in your career? You were in different states.
Always Colorado.
Always. Okay. And at one point near the end of the interview, Miss Stauch referred to you as something, and you corrected herself. You corrected her and said you're a behavior analysis.
She said something like, I'm a psychologist.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm in behavior analysis.
Okay. And is that generally what you did throughout the majority of your career?
No.
Okay. What else were your other assignments? And I know you already told Mr. Allen this, but I have to hear things a few times before they sink.
No worries. So I was a special agent, and I was assigned to the criminal side for the FBI. There's a terrorism side or counterintelligence and a criminal side. And for my last 23 years, I was a criminal agent for them. So I was never a supervisor, it would be similar to being a detective for a local police department.
Okay. Now, you told Ms. Stout during the interview that you had been contacted by the main office for the FBI and told to go do this interview with her in South Carolina. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I told her, I was asked by the Colorado Springs office to come investigate initially and then also to go out to South Carolina.
Okay. Whose decision was it to you be the one that goes in and does this almost 5-hour interview?
I think it was up in the air early, whether it would be El Paso investigator and myself or just myself. And I don't remember how it came just to be me, but it ended up just being me.
Okay. And have you done a lot of these interviews over your career?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we got into the audio videotape interview, we were listening to some additional phone calls with Gannon's father and Miss Stout.
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall in one of these interviews, it looks like it was February 19th, 2020. It began about 12:10 p.m. Do you recall that interview that was recorded?
Yes, briefly.
Okay. And were you there for that one?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember at the end of that conversation, it said, Letecia said that her guess would be that Gannon was not in Colorado. When asked how she knew, she said, quote, because Tisha didn't hurt him, didn't dispose of him or anything like that, okay? It goes on, so Tisha was in Colorado with nothing, and you guys have run up all these places where y'all think I did or whatever, and you haven't found Gannon. Do you recall her at one point referring to herself as Tisha?
I do.
Okay. Now, generally, somebody in that conversation would say I, but in this situation, she's referring to herself in the third person.
Correct.
Okay. Did you find that a little bit off?
Not really.
Okay. Well, what if I started questioning you right here instead of saying, I've got a couple questions for you, Mr. Grusing? What if I said, Mr. Cook has a couple questions for you, Mr. Grusing? Mr. Cook would like to proceed. Would that be a little bit off?
It depends on who you are and how well I knew you.
So it'd be kind of strange if I was up here cross-examining you and I was using the third person to refer to myself.
It would be unusual, yes.
Mr. Cook has some more questions for you.
Sounds good.
Couldn't help it.
Now, with respect to the Google searches we talked about, or you talked about with Letecia, I don't like my stepson, you recall those and
I do.
discussing that with Mr. Allen. Were you able to pull up the content that was retrieved during these searches, or what is the scope of what information you were able to pull up in this metadata or whatever it is?
So yeah, I was quite a bit removed from that. We had a computer specialist that was looking into her phone and would send us sanitized results.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't see what the kickback was or
That's correct.
anything. You just could see the search. Okay. And you don't know when these searches were made.
I don't.
Okay. And that's not because you didn't look. It's just because that information was not saved.
Yeah, I was told they didn't know you're talking about when her actual search happened on her phone?
Yeah. When she, Googled in, I don't like my stepson. What do I do about it? Like if that was in 2018 or was it?
Correct. Yeah, it was no timestamp date was given to me for those searches.
Okay. So some of these searches could have been January 27th of 2020, and some of them could have been in 2018, or some of them could have been actually after January 27th,
Correct.
but before the phone was seized.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of any searches coming back saying, what do I do if I don't like my stepson? And the answer being, stab him 17 times, plunge and force, strike him 4 times in the head and shoot him in the head?
No.
It'd be some pretty bad advice, wouldn't it?
That would not be good advice. You're right.
Now, sometimes, how many different stories did Miss Stout tell? I hear at one point you said you were asking her on the video and told her that she's told you about 7 different stories. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think I was throwing out an approximate number.
Okay. And then Mr. Allen asked you one time, and he said you can't even count how many stories she gave.
Yes, because he brought up variations of stories, which would legitimately count as another story. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But we're not talking about an infinite number of stories. I mean, you could go back and
Correct. We
basically
could count them up.
yeah. I mean, there were, between 5 and 10 main theme stories we're dealing with.
That sounds correct.
And in one interview, something may change a little bit, but there was 5 to 10 main theme stories.
Sounds right.
Okay. Now, during some of the interviews, Ms. Stauch or Letecia, she seemed like she made a lot of eye contact, was pretty engaged near the beginning. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was a part for about 30 minutes or so in the middle where she didn't even look up. She hung her head the whole time. Do you recall that part?
Yes.
And her voice was a lot lower. You could hardly even hear her. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is almost 5 hours a long time to be in an interview room like that?
It just depends on the situation.
What was your goal when you went into this interview room with Letecia? Was it to find out who Gammon was? Was it to get a confession to be used to prosecute her later? Both? I mean, what was the actual game plan when you went in?
Yeah, probably both. I would say primarily is to find what happened to Gammon. And as she had spoken with Al on the phone, that she had given hints or clues. And even if we were to get some of those, that would be worth the 5 hours.
And would you say that you came away from this interview as far as getting the confession and being able to find Gammon more or less empty-handed?
It went about as I expected it would.
And you weren't able to get enough information or any information out to be able to locate Gammon.
That's correct.
Can I have just a second, Your Honor?
Okay.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Are
Thank
you
you,
ready?
Mr. Gerson.
Thank you.
Mr. Grusing, you were asked about the references that the defendant used third person to say her name.
Yes.
Have you been around other people who are self-absorbed who also talk about themselves in the third person?
I have.
Does that indicate in your mind any concerns about mental health capacity?
No,
Did that cause you any concern about this defendant as to her mental health capacity?
it did not.
Did it indicate in your mind that she was exhibiting a separate personality
No,
or acting as a separate person?
no.
You were asked about the demeanor change of the defendant in the interview, where in the beginning she's making lots of eye contact, perhaps even almost flirting with you. How would you attribute her demeanor at the beginning?
Conversational, I would even say hopeful on her part that she might be able to provide me with a story that I might take away.
Potentially hoping to manipulate your involvement in the investigation.
Leading.
Yeah, sustained. You can rephrase.
Sure. Any other indicators for you as to what she may have been trying to get done there?
Yes, as I told her throughout, she was more concerned about what I was thinking than telling me what was happening. And she continued to do that throughout the interview, and I continued to admonish her to just tell me what she knew, not what she thought I was thinking.
Okay. You were asked at the very end of the cross-examination, did you come out empty-handed in this interview? Did you actually get useful information out of this interview?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what useful information you got out of it?
Well, Letecia continued to exhibit no concern for Gammon as she did in the phone calls with Al. Anytime I would try to speak with her about Gammon, an 11-year-old being missing, however I could phrase that, she would turn it back around to herself. Even at the end, she was saying about, instead of him being found, it's her being exonerated and people would be sorry. Everything focused around her. And that's why her referencing her in the third person was not a surprising thing to me. As far as coming out empty-handed, her not being able to articulate a last image of Gammon was very indicative that image was awful, and I told her that multiple times. So to me, I didn't come away with a confession, but I came away with more of a certainty that something really bad had happened to Gammon and that she had witnessed it. As you saw, I probably asked her 30 times, maybe more, about her last image and gave her multiple outs. And the other thing that she kept not wanting to accept is that this was an accident. And normally in a case like this, a person who has last been with a loved one, whether it's accident or something homicidal, they will accept accident, and she would not accept that.
And then what about demonstrating her ability to recall? Were you able to develop that as well?
Her ability to recall,
information.
yes, anything that was not inculpatory towards the disappearance and homicide, she could recall easily. Dates, times, movements, homework, those sorts of things. It was pretty easy for her to articulate those.
Was it your perception that she was refusing to recall data as to what actually happened to Gammon?
Yes.
Was that helpful towards the investigation?
Yes.
Were you able to develop information about her intellect, her ability to communicate, and that sort of thing?
Yes.
And why is that helpful towards the investigation?
That she is a articulate, intelligent, perceptive, and intuitive person. And that also helped her evade law enforcement while we as a team were trying to find out what happened to Gannon while she was even still in Colorado. Just seeing her organized thought patterns there and how adept she was at shifting and deceiving and using some sort of alternative mechanism, it showed us that she was able to carry out what we thought she was able to carry out, and that is hide Gannon when there were multiple people looking for him.
What about the her lack of any prior mental health concerns? Was that helpful towards the investigation?
Yes.
Why?
Because we saw that she knew what she was doing. And we saw that even in her own words, she made this a 3-day ordeal, saying it started on Saturday, it went through Sunday, and there was all sorts of planning and premeditation involved, whether it's the call in to the school or not using her phone, using Gannon's phone. She explained to us that this was a prolonged event.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Grusing? Looks like we have one. Just write it down, pass it forward. Just one? Okay. Council approach, please. In this case, with that, if I can have everyone ready to go at 10:35, we should be able to start at that time. All rise for the jury, please.